What's going on, guys? My name is RagingRaptor and welcome to a new World of Tanks video. Today I got you, an interview with Anton Pankov, the creative director of World of Tanks, which was translated by my very good friend Verox, and here we have a lot of juicy bits. Why exactly he thinks we have to have RNG, what exactly is coming on with Crew 2.0. Today he really did a good job and a very deep job in explaining it, went very deep. And other things like Pan-Asian or Pan-European tree apparently. So yeah, let's just jump right in. One thing I do want to point out, it is an interview, so there is not really anything I can show you. So treat it like a podcast and enjoy. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to say first a question or the head title of it, and then we're going to go through his explanation. Before we then obviously I'm giving my personal thoughts and opinions on this whole thing. And lastly, I'm going to leave a link to the document as a word link up so you can read it up for yourself, so you don't have to listen through everything, because I'm pretty certain it will take some time to go through everything. So the first question is, explain clearly and briefly, especially to those who are in the game recently, what will happen with equipment and crew skills rework. So he says the update is big, and he'll try to explain it. We want to make the skill system more diverse and varied. This will make it possible on each tank to use several sets of skills for a different style of play, and make their effort on the battle for more noticeable. We decided to abandon complex schemes that made interactions with the crew uncomfortable. That includes the skill levels, rate of grinds, the crew skills, and a different number of tankers on different vehicles. Now, instead of a different crew members with their specialities and skills, a single entity will be attached to the tank, the crew. The crew will have a grinded level. For each level, skill points will be awarded, which can be invested in one of 25 skills, divided into 5 specialities. Having invested 30 points in one speciality, it will be possible to unlock a special powerful ability, an ultimate. The Sixth Sense will become a default skill, accessible to all crews from the first level, but it can be improved. The crew will be attached to the nation and the class of technology, or the class of the tank in that sense. Of course, you can change which class the crew belongs to, but not the nation. Before going into the battle, the crew will need to be put on the tank from which it is trained, or on the premium tank of the corresponding nation and class, so as it is already. All unique crew members will become instructors. These are special crew members that will allow you to get bonus points for certain skills. Up to 4 instructors can be added to each crew, but for these, the crew will be needed to be trained to be an appropriate rank. Having grinded the crew to the maximum level, 75, the player will be able to increase his rank as well as add an additional instructor to the crew, train the crew in new tanks, and receive discounts on various actions with the crew, such as changing the skill set. All crew members who are in the tanks at the time of conversion will pass on their experience to the crew, which will appear on these tanks automatically. 5 skills in the old system will be approximately equal to the crew of 75 level. An experience over 5th skill will immediately increase the rank of the crew. If at the time of conversion the tankers were trained for 100% speciality or more, and were in the barracks, then their experience can be transferred to the crews of the corresponding nations to choose a player. So in that sense, it will be like a little bit of a crew booklet. In addition, we want to add new types of equipment to the game that will allow the tankers to customize their tank to their own style of play, instead of constantly installing standard modules. In addition, we will reduce the cost of modules at low and mid tiers of tanks, so that players can grind branches more comfortably. New types of the equipment that will appear in the game will be aimed at improving the set of characteristics useful for different classes and roles of machines. All equipment will be divided into 4 types: mobility, firepower, survival, and intelligence. Depending on the role of the tanks, slots for installing equipment will be assigned to one of these types. If a player installs a certain type of equipment in the adversary slot, he will receive a bonus to the characteristics that this equipment gives. For tanks from tier 1 to tier 3, the number of slot of equipments will be reduced to facilitate the beginners mastering the basic game mechanics. During the conversion, all current equipment will remain installed in tanks or stored in stock. The cost of current equipment will not change, but we will improve the characteristics of some types of equipment. So this was the most important thing I wanted to talk about today, and this is why I put it at the beginning of the video. So now it is very, very interesting to hear we got levels and skills. So first things first, we have 25 unique skills, which will end in an ultimate skill. So this ultimate skill, we don't know yet how it's going to work. From what I've heard, however, there will be on each and every single speciality or each and single thingy, there will be 2 different ultimate skills, as far as I'm not entirely sure, which you can choose between. Those ultimate skills for like each row, like commander, driver, gunner, loader, and radio operator, will be no active skills. There will be just additive bonuses. I asked around and it was explained a little bit like the keystone system in League of Legends, where you have one keystone and an ultimate skin in World of Tanks is like the keystone, where in League of Legends, for example, you have a keystone which allows you to stack up additional damage. It's just one of the bigger things, while all the smaller other things are less pronounced. So the system is rather close-ish to that one. It is good to hear that 6 stance will be default for everybody. What they do not talk about yet is how training will work, in the sense of, do we have 75% crew? If so, what will happen with those crews? Will people, will you still have a worse tank? Like, will your tank still perform worse if you don't have a 100% crew? What will the special crew members or the instructors do? Are instructors people with zero skill brothers in arms, for example? Because that at least sounds like it. And everything, it just sounds very, very... Still, it is interesting that they try to explain it, but it's still quite hard to grasp, in my personal opinion. However, it is good to hear that if you're able to grind out the level, you are able to add instructors as well as train the crew on a new tank. So depending how high the level of the crew is, you actually can have it on different tanks. That's how I understood it. So let's, for example, say my AMX 30B crew right now would be after conversion level 75 and above. So this means that after the above, I can say, you know what, it's such a good crew, I can now train it on the AMX 30 as well. And maybe the Bat Chatillon 25-ton AP. I don't know. But that is pretty interesting of a feature. However, there is some things I don't really like. I already understand that Brothers in Arms crews are very, very strong, like zero skill Brothers in Arms crews. They make it a lot easier to get all the necessary skills to perform good with a tank. But what are those instructors going to do? Because so far it can go left or right. In a sense, it could be no issue whatsoever, or it could be incredibly overpowered. I really, really dislike that because, let's be honest, do we need anything more overpowered? I don't really think so. But right now, this really sounds like it is going to be rather overpowered-ish. And I really do hope that Wargaming is not going to do that, But yeah, they also talk about a little bit about the equipment. The equipment sounds very, very similar to what we are going to have in World of Warships, or what we already have in World of Warships. On another Q&A, which I'm preparing, he's going a little bit deeper-ish in this topic, and I have some pictures to explain this. But I personally think it is an interesting topic to do. I also do think that it kind of could become a little bit OP, depending how Wargaming wants to do it. Again, they have 4 different equipment slots: mobility, firepower, survival, and intelligence, which is interesting. It's very, very interesting because what intelligence is going to mean. Like, do we get the ability to have better camo breaking, for example? Survival, is this going to mean that our tanks will have more HP, for example? Or, well, most likely gets less stun damage and less HE damage. Maybe even less damage in general. Who knows? Who knows? Firepower most likely is just going to be your standard reload time and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm a little bit scared because they say the current equipment will be made stronger for their price. So do we get something like, I don't know, 15 seconds reload time boost on 15% reload time boost on tank rammer? I don't hope so, because that's that sounds very, 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 very OP. I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of things to talk about this. I'm leaving it here right now because I've got other things to talk about. Please let me know in the comment section below what you think about this. Seriously, it would be very, very interesting to know. Next up, the game has a lot of vehicles, but are tanks of new nations planned in 2020? What nations were left without attention? Are all tank-wielding countries already represented in the game? They say large, medium, and close to their size military powers in the game are already represented. After all, tanks in Second World War were kind of a luxury and not just a means of transportation. All that we could collect, signature famous and not quite famous tanks we have already implemented. There are many other nations, Swedish, Hungarian, Spanish. Therefore, we are looking towards the national trees, Pan-Asian and European. But there are no specific plans for this year. New tanks will be released, but within the framework of existing nations. So, interesting, Pan-Asian and European trees wargaming is still fiddling around with this idea. They say, however, that this year's new tanks will be all from existing nations. We already got the double-barreled guns. I'm not sure if Wargaming still counts this as a new tree for this year. We're going to get Polish tanks. We do not know yet what. It is being suggested or thrown around it will be medium tanks, because we already have heavies, and Wargaming most likely do not want to introduce TDs. So it will most likely be Polish medium tanks. And we are going to get, as far as I know, the Italian heavy tanks. Nothing is known yet, except that they will most likely also have the auto-reloading mechanic. So yeah, interesting to see. I still know that Mitsutayo did an amazing job at performing a very, very big Swiss tank tree proposal, which is very logical and has a lot of real-life things which Switzerland daddled around with. So, you know, this could also be something for 2021, maybe, or for the European tree. I do, especially as a Swiss, would like to have our own Swiss tree, but we'll see how it goes. Why did you launch the 12th server in Russia? Well, it has a certain test goals, and it was needed because to handle the load of, well, coronavirus. Next up, the battle has a lot of 3 to 4 minute games. Why is that? Do you think that there were much fewer such battles before 1.0? He says it doesn't seem like it. It's not related to 1.0. The increase or decrease in number of turbo is associated with the meta of the game. That is, with the advent, relatively speaking, of better tanks. And in absolute terms, it cannot be said that there are a lot of them. It's just that such battles are much more memorable, like RT one-shots or something else. Therefore, it seems that this is directly widespread phenomenon. In fact, we never had such problems en masse if you look at the statistics. We understand that in the eyes of players, turbo battles are more off-putting. It's difficult to deal with turbo because they are committed by players. This is a part of their behavior, and until we figure it out how to do it. So, I understand. I'm also somebody which is always counting out the 5-15 5-minute games because I consider them to be turbo battle as well. Because let's be honest, in 5 minutes, ruffle stomping the enemy team is not really that fun. I want to actually do a little experiment later on this year, maybe, or just starting in an Excel sheet, doing like little strict thingies where I say, how long did each battle go? What is the average time? And how often, for example, did we got a 5:15 game, a 6:15 game, etc., etc., etc. I think on the Russian server, this problem is a little bit worse. Again, this is a Russian interview. I understand that because Russians tend to play a lot more aggressive than European and NA players. You can especially see it in the competitive game modes, for example in Clan Wars and other esports events where the Russian players are not only better than other teams, but they're also playing very, very aggressively and hardly camp. Maybe those turbo battles are much more pronounced on the Russian server because of this rush mentality. I don't know. So, next question. Most players prefer tier 8 or at best tier 9. Why did tier 10s become less popular? This is the concept of the game. They are unprofitable credit-wise tanks. That is, in order to play them, you need a lot of spare credits. The last tier of premiums that is used to farm silver reliably is tier 8, and therefore most players tend to focus on tier 8s, maybe tier 9s. I personally think that tier 9 is the best tier to play in because it basically has a better version of +-1 matchmaking. Tier 9s are already a lot of fun and have most of their main characteristics compared to the tier 10 ones. And simply tier 9 is just in a good spot. It makes credits, it still has the ability to ruffle stomp tier 7s, and it doesn't get stomped by tier 9s, tier 10s. It's a very good tier to be in, and I think Wargaming noticed that as well, hence why they started to introduce a lot more tier 9 rewards lately than tier 10 rewards. Next question. What is missing in the game right now? At the moment, the game has enough. We have models for any group of audience, entertainment of any format for every taste. The game is technically stable, but we are not going to stop there. We constantly have new ideas, new stories are born, various battle modes, new tanks, etc. Over the past 3 years, we have added a lot of things functionally, so you can't say that something is missing. You always want to have more, but in general, the game is now self-sufficient. And I have to say, this thing right here is bullshit. Like, I do not know where Anton is getting these things. What is missing in the game right now? There are a lot of things missing in the game, most notably balancing. Like, yes, I get the E100, the IS-4, and the E5 are now getting balanced, but my goodness gracious, it is tragic how little balance we see per patch. And if we see balance, sometimes it even gets forgotten. Like, let's be honest, Crusader. Is this thing balanced? God hell no. It's literally just a tank with 5 kph being faster and a tier higher. Like, what are you doing? This tank is nowhere fun to play against tier 8s. Like, what the actual frick? In general, I think there are many things still missing in the game. They already said in different Q&As that they want to work more on communication. So this is missing. The game is definitely not self-sufficient. There is endgame content missing. Like, literally for me, I'm somebody which here and there tries to free mark things, but I'm not super invested, I'm not skilled for LTU, I'm not Sir Fosh, which is also free marking a lot. But, like, you can't say that for every single audience out there, for every single guy in the end game, that Clan Wars and free marking is the only thing you can do. Like, that is fucking bullshit, seriously. We need more endgame content. Why, for example, not introduce something that you can, for example, buy a tank with universal blueprints, a special reward tank for like 1,000 of them or 2,000. So you can kind of get a grind towards that, like a long-term goal. Why not implement a new set of missions? Sure, missions are toxic in their own way of sense, but at least it's a little bit of endgame content. But seriously, we do miss endgame content. And again, tier 10 is not endgame. Clan Wars is not endgame anymore. I don't know. Different game modes at the moment, the issue is many of those game modes are just super grindy. Like, just look at Frontline. Frontline is incredibly grindy, let's be honest. I'm looking forward to the Steel Hunter because it is supposed to be very, very good, or 3 times better. They said it in a different Q&A. But, like, for example, the 7 vs 7 mode is a lot of fun, but it simply disappears again. And there's nothing really in it to play it except for fun. Why is, for example, Steel Hunter not a constant thing here? That's, for example, I don't understand. Because it could be a great game mode for constantly being here. Steel Hunter, like, as an additional one, like, seriously, why did Wargaming not try to make the Steel Hunter game mode to be something on its own, integrated into the World of Tanks client? Maybe there are a lot of people out there which don't want to play World of Tanks themselves, but want to play a Fortnite with tanks. Like, Jesus. The first prototype was a lot of fun, to be honest. And so was the second iteration. Still needs a little bit of things to work on, like not just simply quadrants getting off. I really like the thing of circle coming closer. But there is far more that needs to be done with World of Tanks to say that it's self-sufficient. You can play it, sure, but there's so much still missing. So yeah, why won't you simply remove damage RNG? Suppose if a tank says its weapon deals 400, it deals 400, and not just 350 or 320. Because we think that the game shouldn't have a certain random effect. Normalization or scatter affect damage, plus minus 25%, so that's why we initially implemented it. Over the past years, we have been convinced that it's absolutely correct positions. We are not counter-sack, so there's a certain share of probability. This adds a twist to the game. Yes, but come on. Competitive game modes literally died because of you having RNG in a game. I understand, but look how the biggest games, competitive games, League of Legends and Counter-Strike, they're the biggest competitive games as far as I know. Yet they do not have freaking RNG, you know? They don't have RNG. I understand that World of Tanks does not want to be a clone of those games. But please just kind of, maybe just try a little experiment. Plus minus 10% RNG on damage. Or 15%, you know? On penetration as well. Because everything else I kind of can get behind. Even though accuracy is super annoying because there is the most skill involved, you know, to aim properly, to hit where you're aiming, etc. But, like, you can't, you literally can't, like, the damage is more obvious because you see it. You see that you got fricked over by the damage. You dealt 593 damage with your 750 alpha gun. Youuuu. Congratulations, you lost the game because of that. But on penetration, you literally don't see it. And if you have, for example, a heat run with 340mm penetration, but you bounce on something with 270 effective armor, because RNG said so, it's just so gruesome. Like, it just sucks so bad. So yeah, I understand. They also said that RNG is there to put out emotions. Obviously you can have emotions when you get lucky. But sometimes, no, not sometimes, rather often I wish that the RNG would be less. Just as a test. 2 weeks test, say RNG is 15%. I don't know. See how it goes, if people like it or not. Wargaming has to freaking test more with the people. Not just say, oh, our assumption is bad. Literally, in no field whatsoever, assumptions are just assumptions. You're going to test them. If they're right, you're right. If they're wrong, you're right. You know? You always test assumptions. You just throw it out, oh, it will be shit. You know? That is actually something which pisses me off about Wargaming's developing lately. Because they're throwing around so many assumptions, plus minus one matchmaking is shite because this and this and this, yet they don't test it. It's something so goddamn annoying and pisses me the fuck off. Will there be servers without RT in the game? To date, we have no plans for anything like that. Perhaps there will be in the future, maybe there will be experiments on this topic. But at the moment, nothing is being worked on so far. Well, artillery. I do think that artillery needs to be part of the game, but at the moment it's just not fun. It's not a supportive class with how much damage it deals plus being stunned. But that's a topic for another video, another 30-minute long video. How will you handle the 10th anniversary? What will the players get for their loyalty to the World of Tanks? Well, our game marks a 10 years anniversary. Are there many games in the world that can boast such a respectable age, and which at the time remain cool and popular with the players? Well, League of Legends is also turning 10 as far as I know. Yes, I know some people swore it off after some debacles with balancing and so on, but it's still a game which also can call itself very respectable and popular. Heck, a lot of old games. I like to play Battlefield Bad Company 2, and it's old, but it's a great game. I understand that lately a lot of games die out quickly. As far as I know, even Battlefield 5 recently died, because DICE did a shit show. But, come on, don't boast so much about yourself. You lost a lot of players, let's be honest. You lost a lot of players because you did shite in balancing, okay? On our anniversary, we will try to make many pleasant surprises for the tankers. Like here, he's just reciting what they're going to do, with gifts and surprises at the end, and the 5 stages, la-di-da, so I'm going to skip over it a little bit. Then there will be a lot of interesting things, along with the completely new features of the tankers are waiting for the so-called gaming comebacks. And all of this, of course, will be accompanied with gifts, not only in the game but also beyond. Well, do the players will get t-shirts or what? I don't know. What does this mean? Not only in the game but also beyond. Postcard creator or not? I don't know. Whatever. I still think the 10th anniversary can be good. I issue 152k, for example, could be an option. Aufklärungspanzer 5 could be an option. Maybe we'll get other game modes. Who knows? Last year, VG Fest was already pretty decent. Maybe we'll see more of that. Player complain about wheeled tanks that they fly around. Don't you think they make what unbalanced? And here again, they're saying they're going to nerf them and make corrections. We plan to show the changes either within Sandbox or during general test immediately, as soon as everything is ready. So I'm pretty sure next update 1.10 or 2.0, however they want to call it, will have the E100, the IS4 changes, the E5 changes, and the EBR changes. It really does sound like a big balancing update. Issue is, I want to still point out, yes, it's great that Wargaming is finally balancing, but it's just so slow. Yeah, speaking about balancing, the game has a lot of irrelevant tanks which few people ever play. Can you name the tanks that are not popular, and why is this happening? Today the tank is popular, and the day after tomorrow it already gathering dust in the hangar. For people who are familiar with esports and in principle with today's competitive gaming, there is such a thing as a meta. There are character, tanks, abilities, weapons that are popular with players. Naturally, over time, this set changes because new weapons appear. New tanks, they change, they balance. After all, the tanks just introduced into the game are always more interesting. Because they are less predictable, their strengths and weaknesses are still poorly understood, etc. So there have always been more or less popular tanks, at least from the moment of the game arose. Like, seriously, he just dodges the question, doesn't he? Like, you are the developer. You are making the meta. The players adapt to the meta. You might not have seen the meta coming, but you have the tools in your hand to change that meta. I'm not saying that you suddenly should make the 1-to-1 overpowered, but make it at least competitive in the sense that it's not a freaking shit show to play, you know? For example, their 1-to-1. They said they want to change it in another Q&A, which was actually held by more competent people, it feels like at least. But, I don't know. Seriously. Yeah, obviously there will always be more stronger tanks, but we have at the moment in the game tanks which are simply not usable. KV5, for example, it's garbage. Rheinmetall Borsig Rheinmetall Panzerwagen on tier 10, that's tier 10 Scout. Bullshit, it's not being used. Like, it's absolutely nobody uses that shite because it's so bad. So, like, you, Wargaming, you have the tools to shift the meta. You can make the game more competitive, you can make tanks more competitive, and you can nerf tanks which are all powered. I'm looking at 279 Chieftain 430U, and I know that you don't want to piss off people which used time to get those tanks. But it's so stupid, balancing-wise. Why should somebody which played longer have a tank which nobody ever can get, which a new player can't get, and it is even stronger than anything else around? Like, come on, where is the balancing in goddamn that? Honestly speaking, this guy pisses me off a little bit. A lot, actually. Will there be an opportunity to have in-game communication, alias through voice chat? And he says, no, with 15 people, too much chaos. What is the probability that Tankers Day will be cancelled? I'm not entirely sure what is meant with Tankers Day, but I think it's Wargaming Fest. They say they don't know yet. We are preparing for the event, but they keep in touch with Minsk's or Ost administration. It makes sense. Minsk might say no. Tankers or VG Fest, it will be in September as far as I know, and it's a big date obviously, but it makes sense that this may or may not become reality, you know, because of the coronavirus crisis. You said that few players use the Anonymizer. Why do you think so? And this is probably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Because it's very narrow-minded, narrowly focused thing, because a player's nickname, his game statistic and achievements are unique. Not everyone wants to hide them. Okay. They literally want to say that people don't use the Anonymizer because they want to show off their stats. I don't know where he gets this idea, but I know so many people which use Anonymizer because they think that it helps them to get focus less artillery because of their stats. I think almost everybody from our clan, Oda Mortis, uses the Anonymizer. I think one of the main exceptions. And this is because not only do I have a very high respect of skillful LTU, but I actually like getting recognized by teammates. Even now with the general chat being on, it's actually amazing to have people recognize me and say, yo, Raging, I love your videos. It's amazing to see you in game. And I can, even though I rage about artillery and XVM focus whatsoever, I still enjoy seeing those comments, and they are enough for me to be happy about that, you know? Obviously, they say that well-known tank bloggers are very grateful for this option, obviously. Obviously, that people like WikiBaby, Myland, and so on and so forth, they want to hide their names to not get focused by people which recognize their name and by their XVM, you know? WN8. But literally saying that so many little people use it is because they don't want to hide their precious, they want to show their precious statistics. It's just horseshit, seriously. Good players will most of the time use Anonymizer to not get recognized and get focused, period. Again, I don't know where he's getting the spaces off. Was there any thought to reduce the amount of artillery in battle? At least 2, and then the players would complain. This is again such a horseshit answer, I can't say it else. They don't want to limit the amount of artillery per battle to 2 instead of 3, because then there wouldn't be any games without artillery. In a Russian server, it's actually horrible. 44% of the tier 10 games have free artilleries in it. Here it is the same, I think. But what the actual fuck? I'd rather have to play more games where there's only 2 artillery around in the game rather than 3, because 3 is just atrocious. It doesn't matter what you're playing, except if you're playing normal, also artillery. But it doesn't matter what you're playing, but free artillery is just kill the fun. You have to play so careful, you have to be so, you can't get spotted basically, because artillery is all over your anus. And it's just stupid. And again, why doesn't Wargaming decide to say, you know what, let's try to make the matchmaker like this, that artillery, that there will be an equal amount of 2, 1, and 0 artillery games. And let's be honest, if most people already agree on that artillery is not a great balanced map class. So yeah, why should 4 other classes be punished by 1 imbalanced class? Because Wargaming literally says they don't want to make the games last longer, or like the matchmaker take longer to find the game for them. Makes no sense, seriously. It's a class nobody really likes to play with, and 3 are too much. So why not just say, try, the matchmaker should try between 0, 1, and 2 to make equal amounts of games like this, and give the artilleries a longer queue time. Why not this? I don't understand this. Seriously. I know artillery already has a longer queue time, but come on. You are literally there to fap on people. So you get at least punished for that. I don't know. This will lead to decrease in diversity as well, he says. That's so horseshit, man. Artillery has no diversity. What the fuck? Literally, artillery has no diversity. Seriously, on tier 10, you literally only see 292 and CSCs. There are 5 RT pieces. Obviously, there is no diversity. And with 3 artillery, it even is less. With 2, actually, you have 1 more tank, which might be diverse. Like, especially this sentence just pisses me off. It's so stupid. What's the point of players exhausting themselves in ranked battle? This is the main competitive mode. Firstly, you can play for awards. Secondly, to show how cool you are. And thirdly, on the top ranks, there's actually balance in skill. That is, not directly according to the statistics, but it becomes clear. If people get to the top ranks, that means they play well. Well, you can also spam battles, you know. You can have a 47% win rate in ranked battles, but as long as you have 52% or 50.1% retention rate of your chevrons, you will go up. Period. Doesn't matter how many battles you spam. And is this really skill? I don't know. Ranked game mode, honestly, take some advice from World of Warships and try different tiers. Maybe tier 6 is better, maybe tier 6 is worse. Maybe people will only spam T64, type 64. Take tier 9, take tier 8, take tier 7. But maybe not always tier 10. Because in tier 10, chieftains, EBRs, and 279s are way out of proportion than anything else. Tier 8, yes, Defender and Prosciutto are there, which are strong tanks. I also understand that, for example, tier 7, we have tanks like the AMX 3075, the E25, etc. They're also strong, but I don't think they're as strong as what we have right now. I don't know, try different tiers for ranked, might be better. You abandoned the idea, which was the base shell to do more damage than gold ones. So why? We did not abandon it, we tested this option, realized that it does not meet the current needs of the game and put it on the table. We will continue the test. So again, I don't really think that making base shells do more damage is a good idea. I do think that at the moment on tier 10 we have a good balance between HP and damage being dealt. So I really hope that Wargaming is not going to do that, but we don't know. Why did you need to divide the tanks into collector's tanks? This is due to putting the tank trees in order. Beginners still become in the game and are overwhelmed basically. They need to be simplified. In addition, as noted in the question above, the game has a lot of irrelevant tanks, which no one plays. Well, again, taking away diversity is a little bit meh. But I think when I'm right now looking into the game, into the tech tree, it looks much better. It looks cleaner. So I give them that one. But on one hand, they say taking away one artillery takes away diversity, but taking away 92 tanks doesn't take away diversity because they have enough tanks. Honestly, hypocrite, literally. Why are players banned in the game for violating rules? Configure. Why do you change low tiers? Do you raise them in tier, lower the tiers, even simply redo the tech tree vehicles? What can you say to the players who receive these news with a negative? They believe that in this way you decide to kill the fun tanks. And here basically it says, well, over the years we had tanks like the Hotchkiss or the Hellcat and the FE304 and the C76. They used to be strong, they got reworked, and now they're not as strong anymore, but they still have lovers. These tanks have stayed in the game and will continue to stay. This is nothing special, they just mean that sometimes you have to nerf some tanks, even if they're fan favorites. And look, I honestly think it was a good idea that Wargaming, for example, nerfed the Panzer 1C. I know a lot of people love this tank, and it's a great tank, it's a fun tank, but it's broken for its tier, especially when played by good players. So I don't think that it's a bad thing that tanks get rebalanced, especially fan favorites. It is needed for the game to be healthy. Like, heck, maybe even new fan favorites will become, you know? New fan favorites would emerge, like the T6 medium tank, which is also very strong, in my opinion even broken, but again, Wargaming may or may not do this. I don't know. Last thing for today, how do you think your project will live? As they say, nothing lasts forever, but in a case the game seems unsinkable. World of Tanks is a very strong game, a phenomenal, while whole project genre. They will live happily ever after. I think that about 10 years in the active stage and further, as long as people play them, they will live. Again, this is just kind of one of the things where they say it's too big to fail. And that's just incredible bad when you know that one of the heads in World of Tanks, the productive director, says that World of Tanks is too big to fail, you know. It really is bad when he's saying he knows that World of Tanks is too big to fail, because this inclines them to do nothing for the game anymore, or very little. Look, if I have to round this all up, I am torn apart. Wargaming right now is doing shite tons of Q&As, which is a great thing, because they want to involve, or at least it feels like they want to involve people. They want to involve the community contributors, etc. That's great. But with all those Q&As, you just sometimes can also see who are the black sheeps in the company? Who are the people which are on top, which sadly don't really have a good of an idea of the game? At least in my point. I really feel like that this thingy here just showed that Anton has a very crooked understanding of World of Tanks. Some things are okay. Other things are just straight up stupid. The RNG thingy, for example. Artillery thingy, for example. Saying that the game is already strong for 10 years. I don't know. It really is exhausting right now to constantly do those things, because you literally are you literally have to sift through all the shite they are talking. Some things are very good and very promising. For example, the crew rework. It sounds promising, but also dangerous. Really, a lot of things can come out of it which are OP, and other things which will not be OP. But it could be, with the equipment rebalance this year, with the tank rebalance this year, really, 2020 could be a great year for wargaming, or for World of Tanks at least. It could be a renaissance for World of Tanks. It really depends on how crew, equipment, and the balancing goes. If the balancing starts to take up pace, then I have high hopes for World of Tanks. If not, and we still get answers like this, I think, yeah, World of Tanks is too big to fail, basically. It will just lose more and more players, and it will lose, but it will still have its core audience. That's it. But it will constantly start to lose more and more players, I think. Especially if we still lack balancing. Again, this guy literally said we have everything in the game. We don't. We do not. But yeah, this was very, very draining right now. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, basically. And yeah, I know it's super dry, but I can't really spice it up. I literally can't. I'm sorry. Thanks so much for watching. And I'll talk to you all later in a different video. Thank you so much. And yeah, maybe next time I'm going to do this on a live stream and just give you the WOD. Or next time I might invite a guest and we do a little bit of a podcast, a real podcast. Oh well, we'll see. Cheers, guys.